Okay, we can start. My name is Eric Tsui from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, and thank you to Dr. Sidhu and also the Prince of Songkla University from Thailand for inviting me to give this talk. I've set the title for this talk, Knowledge Management and Big Data in Business, and the Industry 4.0 Perspective. And I've given many talks on knowledge management and big data before, but I think this time I'm going to take a perspective from Industry 4.0 because there's a good reason for it. You know, we are all stepping into an Industry 4.0 world, and talking to a Thai audience and predominantly an Asian audience. I think many Asian countries have played a significant role in the third industrial revolution. Therefore, coming in from a Industry 4.0 perspective would enable all of us to better understand why knowledge and innovation, among other things, are so important for the excellence of our organization and our country in the years and decades to come. So that's why, one of the driving force for me to deliver this talk is through an Industry 4.0 lens. I also believe, by better understanding the Industry 4.0, we can also better align the opportunities and the efforts of utilizing knowledge and innovation in order to generate the new value add for our organization, so that we can excel in this new Industry 4.0 world. Now, I'm going to do something unusual, which is I go straight to the end and talk about some of the take-home points. There are two main take-home points. The first one is, it's not so much about technology. It's not so much about business knowledge or even business model. It is trust that is so important that underpins the success of deploying knowledge management, big data, and the Industry 4.0 projects. So, hopefully you appreciate that it is always the people element, the human element that holds the key, the pivotal role of success. Second, especially for big data project, as human beings, we need to unlearn certain things, right? There are some things that we've learned over the years and we have applied with good results. But when it comes to big data and leveraging big data for business results, we will have to unlearn certain things and then learn other new things altogether. And what are some of those things? I'll talk about that towards the end of the presentation. Well, it's hopefully obvious to follow that I'm going to start with talking about the knowledge economy and the knowledge advantage, in utilizing and creating knowledge in the new economy. Secondly, I'm going to talk about predominant KM approaches, frameworks, the sources of knowledge. Where do knowledge actually originate in organizations? Where are the leakages? What are the KM systems that are commonly being used? And what are the critical success factors and the trend of knowledge management, as well as the challenges? And thirdly, I'm going to talk about big data, about the availability and abundance of this data, challenges and opportunities in leveraging big data, and of course, what are some of the things that we need to unlearn in order to have success with big data. And during that, I also talked about case studies. Now, we are living in a fourth industrial revolution world. That's exactly what it is. I think it's timely for us to replay this presentation, which is an introductory video on one of my courses on Industry 4.0. And after that, we can discuss about what are the unique characteristics that define the fourth industrial revolution as distinguished from the previous industrial revolutions.
Modern society has gone through three major eras of industrial revolution. Driven by the invention of steam and water power, the first industrial revolution took place in the early 19th century. However, work in all industries was still highly labor-intensive. The wide application of electrical technology hailed the second industrial revolution in the late 19th century, when manufacturing plants were built. laying out the infrastructure and processes for the mass production of products. Digitalization in the 20th century gave birth to the third industrial revolution. Computational and data analysis technologies ensured consistent and efficient operation of processes. And machines could acquire a very basic form of intelligence to support decision-making. With the advancement of big data, cloud computing, data collection and transmission devices, software, and increasingly connected societies, we have stepped into the fourth industrial revolution, or Industry 4.0, and it is symbolized by the real-time smartness exhibited by machines. So what exactly is the fourth industrial revolution? What's it like living in a world of the Internet of Things? Just how smart can machines be? Will robots take over our jobs? How can organizations and individuals be best prepared for the onset of this disruptive force? This online course covers these fascinating topics and more. It is truly an eye-opener into smart products and services for future living. In a factory, such smartness can be manifested as the intelligent diversion and automation of processes, cyber-physical systems for enhanced modeling to support product design, and operations planning. A smart product can even predict its own potential breakdown, and thus alert the user to carry out preventative maintenance to avoid unexpected breakdowns. Massive personalization of products and services is now very real. Our cities are becoming more and more connected and smarter. The division of work between machines and humans is constantly becoming blurred and is being redefined. We can see this happening in the manufacturing, transportation, healthcare, logistics, and many other industries. Welcome to the world of Industry 4.0.
Well, indeed, welcome to the world of Industry 4.0. Did you notice that, what are some of the major things that get us so excited about Industry 4.0? I think for a start, it's the data. It's the massive availability of the data, where the data, come from in many areas that previously was not available. So with these data, we can do analysis, we can test, we can monitor, we can compare, we can benchmark, and we can even predict, how the things will behave in the future. And you can see in the video that in the fourth industrial revolution, with data and artificial intelligence algorithm, we're able to customize or personalize, the product and services for customers, as well as predict, the potential failure of machines. And this is very exciting. It will save us definitely a lot of time, and it will also enables our customer to have superior, the experience by enjoying the level of new pleasure that's being delivered to them. So more on this later. Now, Industry 4.0 success is not just based on data, of course. There are many other things that needs to be coordinated. The company structures, logistics, supply chain, management structures, procurement, and so forth. Everything that's indicated in here that needs to work well and gel together in order to produce an efficient and effective organization. Let's revisit, at least, from the third industrial revolution onwards, how organizations actually generate value. Well, one common way is firstly by understanding about what the market needs, correctly ascertaining what the market needs, identifying potential customers, and then coming back to the company, being able to produce, the needed product and or service with quality and appropriate cost. Then approach the potential customers. Hopefully, the potential customer appreciate what is being shown to them, and if they are satisfied, they will pay. And this, with the payment, that basically closes the loop of value creation, because the value is coming back to the organization, and the organization can invest in whatever they've earned to produce more, to better the quality, to improve the process, to do R&D, and more. So in this process of value creation, three value disciplines come into very strict attention. The first one is operational excellence, right? Most organizations are well aware of this and are putting in a lot of efforts to try to generate the needed product and service in an economical way, efficiently, reliably, accurately, and also to obviously satisfying the need of the customer. The second one is product and service leadership, and that's about how good the organization's mastery and production with competency, the needed product and service. So on the one hand, while you can produce the goods and services economically and effectively, it's no good if the product and service does not meet what the customer needs. And therefore, this red box about product and services, it's important in order to ensure what's being developed are appropriate and suitable for the market. Well, with these two, is that enough? Well, there's one more, and that is, if the organization can also enhance customer intimacy, that's paying care and attention to customers, to individual customers at the very best, that would be excellent, right? And customer intimacy is about, attending to individual customers' needs and adjusting your product and your services to precisely, fit the desire and needs of that customer. Well, these three have been for a long time the value disciplines of many organizations. They're trying to excel in order to succeed. And based on past experience, I think most organizations, even very successful organizations, can only manage to do two of these very well and maintaining perhaps well above average for the third one. Well, going back to management principles about organizations, the theory of the firm, and also the value of knowledge. Well, we're really going back about 50 or 60 years of academic research here. In the early days, many people subscribe to the theory of the firm. And the theory of the firm merely states that, the organization is basically a bunch of processes, well-defined processes. And as long as the processes are defined and people can carry that out, then the organization can function. Well, very soon, this theory breaks down because when people leave and new people join, we soon find out that, especially as society advances, things become more complicated. Merely relying on repeating the process or assuming the new people can repeat the process is not the way to go. On many occasions, they don't know how to carry it out, even though the equipment, the manual, the training is there. So obviously something is missing, right? So we move to the production model, which is organization attend to what the market needs and then just swing together and use all the resources that are available in the organization to meet those needs. Then came the more popular, very popular, still used today, view, the resource-based view of the firm. And that is, the theory stipulates that managers and directors typically make use of a combination of the resources in the organization in order to meet the needs of what the organization needs to do, as well as to deal with challenges and even create new opportunities. Fair enough, but still, that's not good enough to explain the operation of the firm and the challenges of the firm. Then we have the knowledge-based view, because people start to realize that, hey, definitely, people is the most important element, right? Asset in the organization. But what is that in people that is important? And gradually, we realize it's the knowledge in their heads, their willingness to contribute, to share, and also the collaboration among them. So it's not just the individual knowledge of staff, but also the collective knowledge, the collaborative efforts of the staff that matters. Well, organizations have been carrying out a lot of activities and functions in order to enhance the spreading, the sharing, and the transfer of knowledge. And that involves meeting, training, even reverse engineering from documentations and systems. However, still, we find that that's not adequate, and knowledge seems to be, never-ending and often still missing or leaking, from the organization. So why there are still knowledge leakages? Why? Well, it's difficult to manage knowledge. Everybody knows. I'm going to play this short video, and then after that, we can discuss about one of the reasons why it's so difficult to manage knowledge. Well, I think you must be astounded by this video, and it is right. Knowledge is important, but the efforts of knowing where to apply the efforts is even more important. And that brings us to the topic of the difference between tacit and explicit knowledge. Well, tacit is something that is still residing in our head. It doesn't take up any particular form. We are not even aware about the tacit knowledge that we have, and in most cases it's being triggered by some cues or incidents that made us recall, in fact I know this, in fact I remember this, right? Whereas explicit knowledge is already documented, it's externalized, it's no longer in the body, and it's written down. It can be in paper form, it can be in electronic form. Well, a good depiction of the comparison between tacit and explicit knowledge is this diagram, which is commonly available in most knowledge management books. You see a liner, a ship liner traveling in some very cold area and encounter iceberg. What it can see, obviously, is only the iceberg, or the part of the iceberg that is above the sea level. Well, better send a diver to find out, underneath the water, how big is the iceberg. Wow, it's a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger, right? So nothing provides us with an exact measurement of the volume of knowledge, but I think we can safely assume that tacit knowledge is, as this analogy provides, it's invisible, it's difficult to reach, difficult to measure, and definitely it has a lot bigger volume than explicit knowledge. Well, the complication continues. Our knowledge is not easily transferred to other people. In fact, we know a lot more than what we can say, and we can say a lot more than what we can write. Knowledge is only possible to be revealed in a social setting. So in KM, many people believe that rather than focusing on the tools, we should be focusing on providing an environment that cultivates an environment so that sharing can be more natural, more willing, and more, easier to be elicited. And many believe, I'm certainly one of them, the conversations are important. So, it's through conversations that a lot of rich tacit knowledge are being conveyed and communicated, right? Obviously, it would be nice if we have face-to-face contact, but, if that's not possible, like in pandemic days, then even online discussions, real-time discussions are valuable. So, whenever possible, try to conduct, real-time face-to-face discussions. However, there are still leakages. Well, you know what? This book by Pfeffer and Sutton enlightened us that, to make it simple, there are at least 4 quadrants of knowledge that we should be aware of. The 4 quadrants of knowledge. We obviously know some of the things that we know, like, if you're doing a degree, then after you have completed your degree, then you have some expertise in certain disciplines, right? So you know that, but many things that you also know, you picked up along the way, you've learned it subconsciously, right? But you're not consciously aware of it. So in other words, there's a part that, you didn't know that you actually know that. And often based on some trigger or sudden incident that triggers you to think that, I remember, in fact, I've encountered this before. I remember, I have done this before. Let me tell you more, right? So this is indicative of, something that you actually know, but you're not consciously, aware of it. Then for the unknown space, equally, we have 2. We don't know what we don't know, right? Because there's so many things that we don't know, but, can you identify those things that you definitely do not know? And then obviously you have to decide on whether you should embark on knowing more about it, because ignorance is not a good thing. The more you know, the more you understand that what you don't know. Well, zooming out from what I've just said, the last 5 minutes or so, I'm taking you down one perspective, only one perspective of KM. Now, that perspective is tacit and explicit knowledge. In fact, if you look on this page, we can treat knowledge with different perspectives. We can treat knowledge as practice knowledge. So we only count knowledge if it's being practiced, if being demonstrated by somebody in solving a problem, in carrying out a procedure, for example. We can also treat objects as knowledge, right? If you do that, that means that you believe knowledge can be, contained in a can, right? In a container, and you can process this container properly. Obviously, this is a weak assumption, right? So my point is, depending on what aspects or which perspective of knowledge you take, we appreciate, we design strategy for knowledge, we develop and use the KM systems in different ways. So, really, really different, perspectives of knowledge, which drive knowledge management journey and strategy into many different directions. And we'll come back to this perspective issue later on in the presentation. Well, early on, we showed the video of the 4th Industrial Revolution. Now, all of us came through the 3rd Industrial Revolution because that was the one just before the current one. And look at these keywords, efficiency, productivity, cost optimization, load balancing, streamline, control, uptime. These are all buzzwords in today's operations management. These are, the principles and, the activities that we have to carry out in the 3rd Industrial Revolution era and still with us today. So we are trained, we are, accustomed to enforcing this. But today we are into the 4th Industrial Revolution. We have to ask whether all of these, or some of these, or some new elements need to be added to this list. And in fact, the more you think about it, you have to agree that our workplace environments are all still, designed based on the 3rd Industrial Revolution. And that's division of work, specialization of work, hierarchies, enforcing control, and functional roles. And that's exactly, what this simple diagram illustrates. You've got organizational chart, you've got levels of managers, you've got control, and you've got, functional managers, ensuring that they are responsible for certain particular activities in the company. While that is an efficient efficient way to control the operations and possibly would enable things to be move smoothly, right? This is an analogy of exactly what I just showed you. I believe these are like stovepipes, right? Pipes in the basement, right? So each department is a pipe. Each department can run smoothly, fastly within the departments, right? If they are doing things right, but there is little sharing between the departments, right? There is little sharing between the departments. In here, there is no pipe pointing to another pipe. Each pipe has its own right from start to end, right? So that is the problem in today's heavily connected, digitalized, the Industry 4.0 world. The world is increasingly connected. More information is being available, yet our organizational structure and governance structure and control does not lend easy sharing of information. Well, some operational examples. For example, employees are unable to find, the existing information because they could be stuck in one corner and wouldn't be able to search things in other parts of the organization. Lessons learned, maybe at best only learned by a small number of individuals. They are surely not being learned on a wider basis, right? So mistakes committed by one department are not known to other departments. And the result, as you can imagine, is other departments will fall into the same mistake again, wasting time, wasting resources. Organizations don't know what they already know, similar to, a person's doesn't know what he actually knows. So this is bad because the organization would, waste time trying to reinvent what they already know. And that wastage of effort in addition to time and also energy of all the staff. Fourth one, very often individuals have valuable information are not tracked in an organization. In other words, organization doesn't even know where the knowledge centers are, who are the key people who actually possess some knowledge. Now that sounds simple, but it's simple enough that that's being ignored by many organizations. Many organizations, they may know, some managers may think that they know who are people who are knowledgeable, but my experience is they have also missed a whole lot of other people, which has proved to be very knowledgeable, but they did not aware of, or they do not actually believe in. So this kind of management structure, while it still has value and continue to exist, is not really geared towards good support for Industry 4.0 and in the digitalized world where many things are being connected, and our role is to open up and continue to connect the dots. Well, I'm not the first person to say that. Professor Klaus North and also Kumtas both also described that because of the advance in IT, because of the increasing availability of information, because of globalization that brings societies closer together, and also because of the flattening structure of organization, moving forward, we have to focus on knowledge creation and also innovation, right? Of course, we still pay attention to efficiency and productivity enhancement, but that's not, as important as focusing on knowledge creation and innovation. Well, I think you kind of get the same conclusion as well if you are, paying attention to the Industry 4.0 video, because computers and automation, they were in the third industrial revolution. Not now. They've been, they were exploited, right? So in the fourth industrial revolutions, we have to think about how this new, the dimension of data, huge volume of data that we never have experienced before, never able to get before, combined with artificial intelligence algorithm and more, help us to break the mold and create new values for the society, definitely for our customers. Well, perhaps this will make it even more obvious, right? I'll be a little bit more specific, if you are staying, tuned with Industry 4.0, some of the things that we can leverage on almost immediately are data, the networks that are around us, also globalization, where we can, to connect with suppliers as well as buyers, quite easily with cloud computing. However, we are also facing the challenges of an aging workforce and also, I suppose, quality of information. Operational excellence, we still pay attention to that. But guess what? Look at this animation. The years of robotic advancement, years of software advancement, years of the workflow automation and so forth. You have to assume that you have to to believe, not just assume, that going forward, many of these automation are being eliminated and solved by robots or software, right? And in fact, it's very, very indicative, right? Almost every week, I read news in in Hong Kong about how some Chinese factories have replaced in a big way a number of their workers, quite a big slice of the workers, by robots. So even China's manufacturing plants are replacing up to 25% of the staff by robots. That is something that we all need to come back to the drawing board and think, does humans still have a role if we focus just on the efficiency? Aren't these things increasingly to be transferred to software, to AI programs, and also to robots? So that brings us to the obvious question, how KM can benefit organization. Obviously, KM can benefit organizations. If you look at industries like engineering, research and development, legal, and so, what do these industries and organizations produce, right? Well, obviously, they have equipment, they have plans, they have tools to produce, but think deeper. A lot of their workers, they spend their time thinking, researching, discussing, collaborating, and making decisions, right? So that's a lot of the time, and not necessarily making tangible products. Financial services, for example, that's a very good example as an industry. What do their workers commonly produce? They produce advice. They produce, the policies. They produce annuities, investment products, financial planning products, and perhaps insurance policies and quotations and more. And these are, these are things that require heavy knowledge-intensive thinking, activities, and experience. I know it takes years to come up with a product in financial services. You have to think very carefully, and you have to do a lot of modeling and simulation before a product can be launched. So all these, I suppose, thousands of hours that's being put in, they are all knowledge-intensive business activities. Perhaps a more direct way to explain this is focusing on knowledge. An organization would be, well aligned to encourage the production of new knowledge, perhaps with innovation as well. An organization would have set appropriate strategy, vision, measurement milestones, and so forth to, to gauge the progress in their output. So new values are being generated, new customers, perhaps, or existing customers with new products and services. And if these are being done correctly, then naturally, one would expect value to be returned, often in financial terms, but not always and not entirely. Hopefully, that is the success to the organization. Now, that brings in a piece of research that my former PhD student has done. Dr. Liu Gang, he has performed a piece of research on discovering deeper relationships between knowledge management, leadership style, leadership effectiveness, and organizational performance. And he used the technique of meta-analytic study to carry out this piece of research. It's published, so you can get this paper. We have 6 findings. First one is, there's a strong positive relationship between KM and organizational performance. Hardly surprising. Second one is, one would have to value knowledge for business development and allocate sufficient resources to support KM projects. Don't treat KM activities as just projects. Treat them as a journey, as an ongoing journey. Continue to give them sufficient support. Managers should lead, support, and very importantly, participate passionately in all KM activities. Don't just pay lip service, but actually get involved in that and get involved in it passionately, with motivation and enthusiasm. Encourage staff to carry out knowledge-based activities via rewards, incentives, and recognitions. Of course, hopefully this can entire staff and encourage staff to get more involved and more contributory to KM activities. Contextual factors like country, norms of certain race, ethnic groups, and also the local culture, economy, all help to shape the effectiveness. They act as moderators that govern the extent in which effective leadership can lead to organizational performance, and they are not to be discounted as well. Right. So today is not the time to discuss about the detail of that piece of research. I have, however, produced a 10-15 minutes interview with Dr. Liu Gang to answering several questions on the left, and you can go to this link on YouTube and be able to replay Dr. Liu Gang's just sharing about his response to each of these 5 questions. Well, definitely success in applying KM. Very good, congratulations. Result in enhancement in knowledge about the industry, the market, the customer, knowledge in better decision making, more consistency in making decision making, and also knowledge about the quality of the service that you are providing, which are all good things. Good KM also help to reduce traveling time, learning time, and also to stop wasting time, or at least reduce wasting time on repeating other people's mistakes. Learn from other people's mistakes and be able to bypass those potential disasters or failures, so that you can avoid those incidents and move forward and achieve success faster, cheaper, and more reliably. Especially for Industry 4.0, taking on KM has new and profound benefits, and that is so far if we've been following, Industry 4.0 is happening in a heavily digitalized society. More and more things are more available on the internet, instantly available. More and more things can be found, can be connected. So we are foolish not to take advantage of that. Well, because of that, precisely because of that, we have to rely on good KM to extend our collaboration, our contact with the outside world. We want to expand our professional and social network with trust, so that we can extend the capabilities of the individuals, of our own group, of our own organization, so that collectively we have more expertise to tackle more complex problems. Together we have more expertise to create new opportunities, which hopefully will generate new values for a new market or for existing customers. Briefly about definition of KM. In short, there's no unified definition about KM. Different people have different connotations about it. That really doesn't help. But respecting that, one of the common ways to define KM is this DIKW pyramid, which obviously at the lowest level is data, and then followed by information, knowledge, and wisdom, right? So many authors trying to define on paper terms how to distinguish between knowledge and information and data. With that, you add the principles of management, then you can define your own definition of knowledge management, and many have done exactly that. Then there's also this approach, which I believe it's a process-based, right, a step-by-step approach to describing KM. Notice in particular, the words like share, create, and apply. This definition is by Ron Young of the Knowledge Associate in the United Kingdom. And according to Ron, knowledge management is the new discipline of enabling individuals, teams, and entire organizations to collectively, systematically, and continuously share, create, and apply knowledge to better achieve the business objectives. Well, I've got more definitions here to entertain you. So you have, you can read through each one of these. But again, let me point out that this process bias of defining KM is quite common. For example, we see another one here. SkyMe, which use the word create, gather, organize, diffuse, use, and exploit, right? In order to describe the KM activities. So one way of collating these processes, it's here. We start off to discover knowledge, discover existing knowledge, discover new knowledge, create new knowledge. We capture them, we take good control and put them in a safe place so that colleagues can retrieve. We share them widely for those people we believe have reason to access them and can make good use of this new knowledge. And then we apply them into whatever applications that we can think of. And hopefully, if we have designed the applications correctly, values will return to the organization. Now, some other authors say that you don't need to worry about the sequence of knowledge processes, and they are right as well. Jasapara in this diagram indicate that the processes are like organize, capture, evaluate, share, and store. Don't worry about the sequence. And as a knowledge worker, every day we encounter a random sequence of work involving these processes. That's as accurate as we can describe it. You are constantly shuffling between searching, sharing, inventing, documenting, maybe even evaluating knowledge. And in the next minute, you go through some of these steps in a different order. That we every day, just about all hours of the day, we are engaged in these kind of activities. We are doing a lot of knowledge processes. Well, furthermore, KM is also a multidisciplinary subject or transdisciplinary. In other words, good KM requires knowledge of many disciplines, not just technology, not just people. Well, this is a good depiction using a tree and also extend to the roots of the tree below the soil, right, below the ground level. Right, so you can see that the ground level, assuming that the roots are things that actually grow the KM tree, well, the roots are very extensive. We need knowledge about strategy, about leadership, about management science, about computer science, information systems, sociology, anthropology, economics, and more. And with this knowledge, then KM can flourish quite well. We can do content management, we can do learning, we have to actually do change management. We have to manage the culture as well. We can develop and deploy KM systems and KM tools, among other things. So, at the enterprise level, if you're doing KM, these are some of the obvious questions that you must be thinking about. I want to know about who is an expert in using the Y system in organization Z. How do I find them? I'm being tasked with a particular project. Has someone in the organization done this project before? I want to learn more, and how do I find someone who has solved this problem before? Now, how can I contact this person? Where do I find this person? These questions are very common, typical of doing enterprise KM. Well, as I said, revisit to the perspectives of knowledge, right? Depending on how you view knowledge, and the example that I use was, we view knowledge based on the distinction between tacit and explicit knowledge. But, if you view knowledge from a different perspective, you view knowledge from the ability to be transferred, you view knowledge about, exactly what form you can capture them, codify it or some other form, then you would have different, the interpretations about the theoretical nature and also the practice of KM. For example, if you are taking the forms view, knowledge can be either codified, right? Or you would have to, to create an environment so that tacit knowledge can be cultivated, right? So as I said, depending on what perspective you take about KM, your strategy, your design of KM systems, and your use of KM tools and activities and so forth can be very different in order to, I suppose, safeguard, maintain, grow, protect, and also share those knowledge. Well, that was, the perspective of KM. What about knowledge? What about the knowledge itself? What about them? Where do organizations generate knowledge, and where do we see the leakages of this knowledge, right? Because knowing this, perhaps it can help us to better design KM approaches and systems to stem out these leakages. Well, this diagram from Irma Pixera Fernandez, it's very useful, which I have used and adapted. Firstly, organizations have people, and these people, they are individuals, but they are also groups of people who carry out group projects. And there are already leakages because, people talk to each other. People have their own wisdom, and they may not document everything. Conversations are not recorded all the time. People working on projects, again, as you all know, not everything is documented. So there's already leakage in this area. Second leakage comes from the repositories. Assuming that you take a form approach, like what we discussed before, you codify your knowledge into documents and you store them. In your codification process, you may have, leakages, something that's not documented properly. And even with the codified knowledge, retrieving them, that could be leakages. The search engine may not be able to find what it's supposed to find. So we have leakages as well. If you adopt KM as practice knowledge, then again, you can observe people practicing, applying the knowledge, but much of this is not documented. And even if you document it, you won't be able to document it very comprehensively. So therefore, you have leakages in that area as well. Then we learned about organization having multiple levels. It's got an organizational chart. It has got, hierarchies. It has got, a line of authority, as well as governance and control, things like data, information, and knowledge flow from one department to another department. So there you go. During that flow, there's also gaps that knowledge may be leaked because they are not documented. And in fact, this is one weakness. There's no container to hold the much needed tacit knowledge, which often come in the form of decision-making knowledge that is being executed by people in organization and across organizations. So what are ways, all the time, every second, tick, clicking away, organizations are leaking knowledge. We have to find a way to at least reduce a part of these leakages. Before we do that, a bit about the knowledge repository. As you find out, those repository could well be keeping, for example, incident reports, critical incident reports, lessons learned, good practices guide, best practices guide, good practice replication, and more. So typically they are, codified documents and in huge volumes and huge numbers. And they rely on good classification of the storage scheme, as well as a good search engine for them to be retrieved accurately and fastly. Well, you can also say that you probably heard of that before. People classified two main approaches to KM. One is, a humanistic approach, where you go through people in terms of breeding the knowledge and retrieving the knowledge, getting the help from people. But there's also, the technological approach, where we very much rely on search engines, alerts, subscriptions, intelligent agents, AI software, and more. Well, it's not difficult to understand the reason why we have this divide in understanding how KM systems came out like that is because there are two fundamental approaches to KM. One is codification, right? Which is trying to capture, write down, codify, externalize as much as possible tacit knowledge, things that are in our head, right? The second one is personalization, which is they still use technology, but getting the people together, getting them to talk together, getting them to build trust, getting them to form a nucleus of knowledge, even in tacit mode, it's valuable and it's paramount. And that is, the second approach, which is the personalization. The P said a lot about it. Personalization. It's people-based. So codification, you codify a lot of documents. You review them, make sure that they are appropriate, and you index them, you metadata them, and you test them with retrieval, and hopefully, they are properly stored and can be properly and fastly retrieved. Personalization-based approach, as I said, they focus more on people. So hopefully you can get together a group of people, like-minded people, who are willing to share and form a nucleus of core knowledge, a body of knowledge inside the organization. Very often, this group of people function as a helping hand, a knowledge center for the rest of the organization. When people need help, they come to this group through one person, and then to ask for advice, and the whole group typically, to come together to harness the collective wisdom and provide this requester with the right answer. So KM software also help with collaboration, and collaboration is different from search engines, and that is help people to organize meetings, to do the pre-meeting work, like creating a document, send it to a group of people for review, hosting the meeting, and allowing people to voice their opinion, to discuss, as well as sharing their preferences for a particular topic. It also supports decision making. This is a simple example of using a collaboration tool to support a sales process, right? And right from pre-sales to after sales. A company receive a call, someone is interested in a particular product, and that information is firstly captured by whoever is handling the incoming request, and then routed to a person on business development or sales who talked about a particular product which the customer is interested, and this person continued the deal with the customer until hopefully a proposal is generated and a decision is made by the customer to purchase or acquire that product or service, and then it's passed to the operational team to deliver it, right? So you can see that throughout this process, different people are involved, different types of activities are being carried out, and there's a flow of information right from initially the customer, the first person in the company to encounter the request, to the salesperson, and then to the operational support and delivery person. So a good KM system would support the flow, and a good KM system would also document all the decision-making knowledge and criteria and decisions that were made during all this flow. So it's natural to conclude, and easy to conclude, that if organizations adopt the codification approach, then technology is a core part of it. We're talking about taxonomies, we're talking about information classification, we are talking about metadata, and we are also talking about search engines, okay? However, if organizations adopt a people-based approach with personalization, communities, and so forth, then we may still have technologies like online discussion forum, but other than that, we may go for more conventional things like meetings, collaboration tool for supporting online meetings, and definitely physical meetings as well. And typical office productivity tools can also be used for documenting what's being discussed in the meeting, highlights of the meeting, in creating documents that can put into the appropriate place for the search engine to search, and other people can read about it. So I have a list of KM applications here, and I'll just read it out. Knowledge repository, knowledge maps, expert directory, knowledge communities, typically communities of practice, but can also include other things. Harnessing collective intelligence, I would replace that by, for example, ideation, crowdsourcing, and also the, open innovation. Then there's also customer knowledge management, e-learning, business rules reasoning or business rule systems, search navigation, taxonomy, or to do with classification, automated question answering, data mining, and knowledge discovery. Now, if you like, when you're replaying this presentation, you might like to take your QR code reader, scan this. You will be taken to a page where you can select your submission or what you believe up to 5 of these that you have commonly encountered. So I'm asking you to provide input on 5, up to 5. You can produce less than 5. You can mark maximum of 5 out of this list to indicate that, hey, you know, when I talk to people about KM, this is what they commonly refer to. So I'm interested in your input as well. Well, this is my prediction. I haven't seen the results because I'm not online right now, but I haven't seen the result. But this is what I would pick. You know, I believe a lot of organizations are doing best practice repositories, lessons learned databases. Many have operated communities of practice, right? And a lot of efforts are being spent on search engines and organizing taxonomies as well. So these 3 are my top 3 choices. And let's see whether your result and the collective result resonate what I've just indicated. Okay, maybe I'll talk a little bit about KM system, right? So KM, now we remember that knowledge management is already not a well-defined term, and KM systems, you know, it's even more difficult because, you know, when the first 2 words in 3 words, it's already difficult to define. We can only, you know, conclude that KM system is not easy to define as well, and that is correct. History goes back to, wow, nearly 20 years ago when I started teaching knowledge management at an Australian institution called University of Technology, Sydney. And I was talking about KMS, and this is what happened, right? And I have created an animation out of it. So let's watch this and we discuss. Today, our topic is knowledge management system, KMS. KMS is a very advanced type of system that typically helps to collect, analyze, and shares knowledge among knowledge workers in an organization in support of their decision making. KMS is very new, advanced, and very few organizations have such kind of system.
Professor, my company has a KMS and has been operating for a long time.
Your company already has a KMS?
Wow!
Wow, this is so exciting. Can I come to your organization tomorrow and you show the KMS to me? I like to see the interface and how it works. Please, please, this is so exciting.
Professor, sure, we can show you our KMS, but it is...
It is what? Come on, tell me.
It is not a technical system. Let me explain. We are a financial services advisory firm. Every day early morning, our staff checks the newspapers for the investment finance session and cut out all the stock and economic data. These data are then categorized and entered into spreadsheets, then sent to various financial analysts for review. By 9 a.m., analysts start work and they review and further analyze the data. They discuss among themselves for a consolidated opinion. Then each analyst would call his or her client and offer expert opinion for making investment decisions. During this process, with appropriate human input and expertise, our company has effectively turned data into actionable knowledge.
Excellent. You provided a great explanation for a real case.
To me, this is the KMS, and indeed a very effective one. Professor, do you agree?
Yes, you're right. KMS does not need to be a technical system. Indeed, it's a socio-technical system that often involves the coordinated collaborative work supported by data and automations. Like in your case, a KMS can be largely manual as long as it effectively converts data into actionable knowledge. Thank you for your input. You have enlightened everyone's understanding of a KMS. Well, as I said, there was a true incident, and I'll never forget that in my life. I was so embarrassed, and I have an IT background, so obviously, I made a mistake. I thought, once I heard the term KMS, I thought it's a technical system. Indeed, the student has enlightened me perfectly. It's not necessarily a KM system. More likely, it's a combination of, human using a technical system, a social-technical system. Indeed. Well, in fact, not just a technical system for organizations, for many organizations, multiple KMS exist. You only have to count search engines, for example. There are plenty of search engines, available inside an organization. And unfortunately, that's not good because the staff would think about which one to use in order to have the best chance of retrieving what they want. And thirdly, not all KMS are integrated. That means there's a good chance that you would have to, use one of the systems, get the data, copy it down on a piece of paper, remember it, and then go to another system, log in again, and then re-enter that piece of data. Now, not only that is troublesome, tedious, but it also can introduce error, which is the last thing we want. So KMS is, not entirely mature and not entirely uniformed inside the workplace. Be that as it may, let me just emphasize again, to a successful KMS, it's a right blend of technology, social processes used by people, and people with trust. Otherwise, if people don't trust the system, if people don't believe the system can actually generate values for them, they would not use it. So again, this word trust come into our play. There are many, types of KMS inside the organization. Not everyone have access to them, but commonly you may assume that, for example, email, that's a KMS, content management system, e-learning systems, document management repositories, all these intranets and so forth, they are all KMS. So you can imagine that an organization have many KMS, and many KMS have different purposes, sometimes also have overlapping capabilities. This is a list of the common KMS that I have encountered, that I have worked in various types of projects in Hong Kong and in Asia. And again, I refer back to the perspective of knowledge. Depending on what perspective you take about knowledge, the KMS can be different, right? Some KMS function in the role of enforcing knowledge flow. Some KMS function in the role of capturing knowledge into a file, safeguarding it, and then ensuring people can retrieve it. Some KMS focus on creating a common space and invite people who are interested to come, discuss, share opinion, and helping others. So it all depends on what is your perspective, what is your adopted perspective of knowledge. I use this diagram just to illustrate about the current status of search engines. I said that as an organizational employee, you probably have several search engines that you can use. Is that right? Sure. Think about it. You know, you have the intranet, you have document management systems owned search engine. If you have a portal, you have search engine. If you have, you know, the HR system, you have a search engine. Your library has a search engine as well. So it is not uncommon that you encounter several search engines. But several search engines is not good because that means we are requesting or we are assuming the user have good knowledge about, you know, where the knowledge can be found. And therefore, he knows or she knows which search engine to use. Now, if search engine is really going to be intelligent, we should not impose this kind of prior understanding on the user. We should not. So here's another input I'm asking from you. If you can scan this QR code, the same one as before, you can move forward with your last input if you are still there, and then you can record what are the common reasons that you believe search engines are ineffective, or what are your common experience with search engines. And I can tell you that my experience has not been good. You know, it's difficult to find things, and on many occasions don't know how to construct the search queries. Search engines are underused and they are not properly configured. People are not trained, so people doesn't know how to get the most use out of search engines, right? Results may be found, but they are not listed high in the result ranking. Therefore, I mean, most people would not go to anything beyond page 3 to look at the results. So if something, even though it is found, but it's not in the first 2 pages, it is considered to be not matched or not found. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done in order to ensure search engine is performing as per what it is being designed to do. In fact, I'm not sure whether you know, search is not being done in real time. The search that you are firing off to Google, they are searching the Google's index of search. They are not actually searching the website in real time because that is too slow. So therefore, that means there's a possibility that people have entered some new information, but people cannot find it inside the search engine. Why? Because the search engine's latest set of index has not been updated. Well, I'm not going to repeat it. Once again, if you get this video, you can click on the bottom link and it will take you to a video that I recorded that talked about the future performance of search engines. What are the needed features and how they should be provided to human beings. Okay, well, starting KM is not easy. You can see that this coupon, it's got spice everywhere. It will sting us if you touch it. So that's just to mean that starting KM is not easy. However, there are, some areas which allow KM to be started slightly easier. I wouldn't say they're easy, but more natural and easier to launch a KM journey. What are they? Well, first about the excuses that people will give you. They've got no budget, they don't know how to do it, they've got no skills, and KM is not measured. So therefore, even though they have invested, they would not know whether KM is returning value or not. There's not enough staff. There's not enough people with KM expertise. And therefore, many organizations, despite they want to do KM, they're hesitant, right? Because they don't have the expertise to do it. Well, I'm going to, just show you, at least alert you that there are a number of areas which perhaps makes it easier, slightly easier to start KM. And first one is the baby boomers retirement. And that's, after the Second World War, many lives has been lost, and therefore, many babies were born, higher proportion than what the world normally sees, right? So that was 1945 to 1960. If you add 60 or 65 years to it, we are right at the end of it. That means the baby boomers have also retired from today's workplace. So in retrospect, you may recall that in the last 10 years, many organizations, Thai organizations, Hong Kong organizations, everywhere in the world, their senior staff have a high proportion of retirement, okay? And guess what? Well, the next line of staff were not able to pick up everything, so that may lead to a compromise in decision-making, poor in the quality of decision-making, and, inconsistency in the level of service that's being provided to the customers. High turnover of staff in certain industries like call centers, right? And time waste on searching things, then definitely organizations don't want to waste anymore. They would listen to any KM solution that you may have. Things have learned before and after a major event, because this is important to document the lessons learned, and many organizations are at a loss about how to do it. They don't know how to do it, and despite having money and resources, they did not do it because they don't have expertise of doing it. Then there's also, improving a search engine, avoiding reinventing the wheel, right? And further sharing knowledge that are beneficial to all departments, right? So these are all good stimulus for senior management to think about and authorize KM journey to start. Well, we can keep that as a record. This is based on our own research, and find that, at least in Hong Kong, based on the many baby boomers retirement project, that many organizations are using a combination of these techniques in order to retain, reverse a bit of the leakages that's being, caused by the departure of baby boomers. If you're studying KM, then no doubt you can also check this list as a self-reflection about how many of these have you actually learned, as you proceed more and more into a KM course. Well, critical success factor, definitely management support, people support as well, grassroots support, user support, attention to culture, change, and once again, I emphasize this word, trust. We need the right blend, people, process, technology, and content. Missing anyone would not be successful. Take an incremental approach, don't go for the big bang. Do a pilot first, and based on what you get from the pilot, improve and monitor, and then gradually expand. Plan KM as a journey, not as a project. And remember from our research, senior management should continue to offer resource support for the KM journey beyond the time frame of a project. Well, these are things that hopefully you don't have to read. These are things that indicate why KM projects fail, and something that you can come back to. But hopefully, you read it once and you try to avoid them rather than committing these mistakes again and again. Okay, maybe I'll turn to big data. And early on, I'll talk about the importance of data, the volume of data that get us so excited, and how we actually, make use of these data, or how we should actually make use of these data to generate new values. Big data as a term come to the world about, I suppose, 10, 15 years ago. And before that, even now, I think everyone is very familiar with some of the related terms like business intelligence, data mining, machine learning, and AI. And there's also data warehousing. Characteristics of big data, Big data doesn't mean that just volume. Volume is huge already, but the velocity, the speed in which the data builds up is also very, very fast. The variety, the type of information, the format of this information, they also come in all forms and shapes. So that's, as we very soon find out, create headaches for processing and understanding. And the fourth one is veracity, and that is ascertaining the truthness, the degree of belief that we should attribute to this data, because obviously we're not going to place belief on something that is fictitious, something that is not right, or poor quality data. Well, I'm led to believe that I'm talking to an IT audience, so this is to be very obvious. At IT, we are always trying to balance, speed, cost, coverage, and accuracy, right? So you can put as many processor on it, perhaps up to a certain extent, you can improve the speed, but you keep on having lots and lots of data. So it comes to a point where you can never analyze all the data, right? So which part of the data you analyze and how representative the result of that analysis would be when you try to scale it up to represent the whole set of solution, right? And if you spend more time to do processing, that means time is clicking away, and that means you may not have the recommendation for the user until seconds later or until minutes later, and those can be critical. So you're always trying to, toss between cost, speed, accuracy, and also, the volume of the data that, or the portion of the data you should be analyzing. A lot of the big data algorithms, in my opinion, they're based on sampling and correlation. If you summarize many of the statistical techniques, then the two big groups of statistical techniques that find its way to constitute big data algorithms are, sampling, which is to determine which group or which set and how big a group, how big a set of data that we should use in order to analyze and get the result to be representative. Second one is correlation, and that is to study the relationship of the data, among them. This correlation may or may not explain causal relationship. So the fact that we identify that there's a correlation between A and B route, that's it. That is, that there is a relationship between A and B where, when one occurs, the other one's very likely to occur as well. And we cannot go any further with the interpretation. We surely cannot say that A causes B or B causes A. So make this very clear. Correlation does not mean causal relationship, right? It just means that, things are related, they are happening or occurring together, but doesn't mean that one leads to the other one. Here are the valuable sources of big data, plenty. The media is a big source. The cloud is another big source. Depending on how you classify the cloud and the web is also a very credible source. Now with Industry 4.0, we have Internet of Things. Remember the new sensors, because of the advancement in nanotechnologies, the sensors are becoming smaller and smaller. They are being embedded into devices, part of the device, they're embedded into clothes and more, right? So, with these sensors, a lot more data is being collected on a regular basis. And so we have a huge volume, a much, much bigger volume, explosion in the volume of data to analyze. Then there are also databases, typically, company proprietary databases, which are not open for the external world. There are public databases and also databases that exist in the library. Don't underestimate the data that is historical and the ones in the library, right? Because in big data projects, very often you need to rely on historical data to further analyze, right? So that will give you accessing to library databases and also to museum data. Some of those may not be digitalized, also offer you a valuable source of information for analysis. I think everyone's familiar with Web 2.0 these days, typically represented by microblocks, podcasts, crowdsourcing, and wikis and so forth, RSS feeds, right? So, needless to say, they generate a lot of data. And in fact, we have to be very careful. Some of these data are not trustworthy. Some of these data, the quality can be very poor. Unstructured and structured information. Obviously, the computers love structured information. This piece of cake to them. It's very easy to analyze a well-designed spreadsheet with well-qualified, well-defined cells of data. But once you get out of that, we have unstructured data. This typically is a mixed format, like email, like the conversational data, like the voice recording and so forth. And that start to make things difficult for computers. Remember, as we discussed earlier, computations is all a game of balancing control, speed, accuracy, and the volume of data, the precise proportion of the data that we want to analyze. So more data, slower processing is not favorable to your analysis. Like as a simple, the example, if you ask a computer to analyze what is there in this photo, well, the first approach could be using image processing algorithm to identify that there is a picture in this on this page, and then zoom into this picture and start to analyze the pixel to see whether you can recover the shape of a phone in that picture. But guess what? That's the slow method. We can apply a faster method, which is to bypass the picture, read or get the computer to analyze the text, and then quickly the computer using AI algorithm will identify that this is a text that talks about phones, right? So again, we can ask the computer to take a risk here. We can pre-program it to take a risk. If so much information is discussing about this topic, about this particular aspect, then we assume the picture in between. If not advertisement, then it's about this very aspect. So if that's the case, then we will ask the computer to conclude that that picture is about mobile phone, right? So of course, in this case it's correct, but there may be in other cases that's not correct. Well, this touches on the issue of, the accuracy, exactness, and reasoning is again on many occasions to balance all the challenges. Many occasions our reasoning with computers or reasoning programming with computers to do reasoning can only be plausible. It's quite likely, probable, plausible, but not absolute. Because if you want to go for absolute, then it's going to cost you a lot more computational power and or time in order to come back with that certainty, and time may not be on your side. Integration and the access to data is another issue. As you can see, this is a data diagram about the world's public data among all the global giants of portals, right? So you can see that for firms, they are under Google, for firms, they are under Yahoo. You can see that their data can be reasonably linked, but once you get out of the empire of a particular group, then data are not connected. So that makes it a lot difficult. We never have all the data. Well, we may have more than sufficient data, but even that is not guaranteed. But we never have all the data because of the sophistication and the complexity that is involved. Then there's the speed and the volume of data that's coming through. I'll leave it to you to read the awesome statistics. Every minute there's hundreds of new videos being uploaded. A minute, 170 millions of emails are being sent. That was a few years ago, and now it's even worse, right? So there's no way that we can keep up with this. We need technology. We need intelligent algorithms, and these algorithms need to be accurate and need to be predictive, knowing about what we need to know, not just now, but also into the future. So you can see that there are quite a complex array of issues involved. But in any case, there's the data and the connections in the digital world is it's very, very abundant, and this offers opportunities for us to mine and to trying to identify potential relationships. Look at the number of people possessing mobile phones. It's just the sheer brilliance. Not all of these connections can be mined, of course, but then still, we're talking about billions of connections connecting people. McKinsey Research has also published this paper, which I'll never forget. At McKinsey researchers also advocate that depending on what data and the ease of capturing of data, the potential value could be different. Obviously, common sense tells us that financial and personal information data on the finance aspect is very beneficial, very fruitful for planning purposes, especially for planning, financial planning, and for lifelong planning, use of funds to support different lifestyles. But other data, like for example, government collected data, telecommunications firms data can be also very beneficial in mining and also providing useful information to various groups of people, including users. So really, it prompts me to think. I have my career, pretty much behind me. I've lost 30, 35 years, and I've seen content is king, customer is king, but now should we assume that data is king? So before we get too excited, there are challenges with data mining. First one is the skill set, the business acumen, right? Again, it's not so much about the technology, the process change, the willingness to change. And there's more, with regard to data, not all data is available. How do we decide what data to analyze, what data to let go, what part of data we should analyze in order to generate a result that is representative of the whole volume of data, and data is, continue to increase while we are processing. What do we do, Data is messy. It will continue to be messier, and chances are it continue to be even more messy. So how do we deal with that? Accuracy, speed, cost, which one should we go for, right? In any case, we have to admit that big data is disruptive, very disruptive. So in other words, we have to stand back and look at the whole impact to see, how we can leverage on this big disruption and come out success, as a result of this change. Well, going back to KM, we're all familiar about, having an expert. And I would say that we have to pay more attention to big data these days, because the expert, if the expert can do more on data analysis, then the expert can quickly enhance his or her skills. Because why someone is originally called an expert? Because this person have seen a lot, in the days, in the years, in the decades of his employment, right? Now with data, he can help to further accelerate that, because the data can provide this expert with other unseen scenarios. That is wonderful, because this person not only can enhance and operate on what he or she has seen, but with the good use of data, it also helps this person to know so much more about things that he or she has not seen. That, to me, it's an enormous benefit, to further elevate the power of an expert. But then on the other hand, you can also reason that, hey, we can train up a data scientist to know about the domain, although it's easier said than done, right? And the data scientist can also, to analyze a large volume of data to build up his expertise in the domain. Yes, that's also possible. I think it would be very interesting to carry out a piece of research to see whether we should continue to breed domain experts and then improve their ability with data science skills, or go the other way, which is start with data scientists and then build up the domain skills. Something that needs further research, I suppose. Okay, let me talk about a few big data case studies before we finish. Gentleman in the picture is Professor Jay Lee, and he's one of the leading experts in big data, especially industrial big data. He has many case studies. I'd like to focus on the last one, which is Dr. Shou's footwear example. And Dr. Lee has enlightened us that Dr. Shou as a clinic, in fact, a franchised clinic to help his patient on removing pain in the legs. Of course, it's not fun. And he has over decades of practice, accumulated tens of thousands of medical records, right, of patients. So Dr. Shou went to a computing expert and then digitalized all these results and came up with an algorithm that relates, the readings of the pressure on different parts of the foot to what sort of pets that he should recommend to the patient. He did that as an information system. He did that as a device that can be installed in, the departmental store, as you can see on the picture in the left, that recommends, after people stepping on it, recording the reading, and the system will recommend what size or what pressure pad on the left leg and for the right leg that this person should get on the side of the shelf. And I thought that's wonderful. That's really a one-size-fits-all solution, or an end-to-end solution that fits everyone individually, right? Obviously, you have to pay more if you want to carry out that prognosis. If you just go and pick a pet, that may be $20. But if you want to use the machine to use the data, right, to help you to identify what pet is more suitable for you, precisely for you, then you have to pay perhaps $50 US dollars for that. There are more case studies. Perhaps I just talk about one or two. The first one is a good one. CDC detection of epidemic outbreak is very tiny, very tiny. Well, in fact, the American researchers is very ahead of this. Many years ago, the CDC, the disease center in America, worked with Google, and they start to study how to provide an early warning system for the outbreak of pandemic or epidemic. Okay, and in fact, they asked Google to look at search strings, what people type in. So today, I think these days, many people type in COVID-19 symptoms and things like that, because if you start to have a problem, you may be skeptical. You may find out, hey, whether I'm in trouble or not. What are the symptoms, right? So you start typing in, and amazing, Google has more than 20 years of history. In fact, more, that everyone has typed in the search query after you log in, right? So you go back to the 20 or 30 years of log and looked at what people type in at just before the official outburst of 4 epidemic in the last 20 years. In Hong Kong, there was one in SARS, 2003. And Google put it through a lot of computational mathematical models, right? And after long processing, computation of these models, Google came out with a set of keywords. I think it's about 100 to 200 keywords with a specific combination that depicts people typically would type in if they are suspicious of copying a particular pandemic. So now Google are monitoring any particular place, locality. If they're concentrating in that area, suddenly for no special reason, there's a surge in people typing in certain types of keywords, then it may start to deduce that maybe there's a bit of a problem, because many people start to feeling unwell, therefore doing the search, but before they get hospitalized, of course, right? So they alert the CDC, and you will see something like that. In fact, we have that in Hong Kong right now, coming to your unit, to your house, knocking on the door, and take you away for quarantine and for more testing. So what do we learn from this? In fact, to detect for epidemic outbreak, you can bypass the whole array of hospital system. If we think carefully, perhaps there's a third party who can help us with the detection of these things. And in this case, Google's system has proved that convincingly and very intelligently that people should be relying on that as an additional source to provide some early warning detection. Now, of course, even Google admitted that, that method I just described to you, it's in most cases over predicting, right? It's too loose, right? So there are many red herrings and false command. But in this case, in today's term, I think having a red herring is better than not having one, right? So that was one. The third one, buying a reliable secondhand car. Now, do you know that after analyzing 40 years of second-hand dealerships data, 40 years in America, right? You go to a second-car yard to purchase a car. If you want to buy a reliable second-hand car, what are the characteristics that you should go for? It's alarming statistics after applying big data principle to the 40 years of data. And the result is, it's here. You don't even need to touch the car. You don't even need to find out what's the model of the car. You just asked for one parameter, and that is the color of the car. Just one attribute is the color of the car. In America, 40 years of data has proved that the most reliable second-hand car is orange car. Cars that are orange in color, doesn't matter what car, right? These cars have repetitively proven after it's being sold as secondhand, it requires the least service, for the rest of its lifetime, right? So that is, again, a wonderful thing, right? So what we learn from there is historical data is important. So sometimes not just focusing on what you are focusing right now and collecting current data, but historical data. Okay, so I'm towards the finish now. So I promised you just to let you know what are some of the things that we need to unlearn and rewire our brain in order to better prepare for the era of big data. Speed of making decisions, in some cases, are far more important than causal reasoning or causal reasoning, right? So in knowing what to do is more important than knowing why. So therefore, correlation is important in some cases, just like the orange car. While you're still trying to figure out why the orange car, someone could have purchased it while you're still thinking. Distinguish association from causality, right? So understand what is correlation, understand what is causal relationship. Treat these two differently, very differently. Trade exactness for approximation to make instant decisions. So close enough, well, that depends on how you define close enough, but close enough is in many cases good enough, right? Approximate solution is good enough because you will never get to the final accurate, totally accurate solution. That will take too much time, that will take too much computational effort, and you may not even get there. Consider using alternative sources of data and systems, just like the CDC example that I've illustrated. Instead of going through the hospital system, go through the Google system, right? Think intelligently, think innovative, how people may, suspect as a reaction after they suspect that they may have, caught some virus, which may be reminiscent of the disease. Leverage on human input. Human input is still important, don't get me wrong. That information that carry protection of humans and the cloud, and don't forget about historical data as well. And for computing students, if your algorithm doesn't work, well, of course, change it, tune it, but sometimes It is not because of your algorithm, it's because of your data, because you are testing your algorithm with small data. When your algorithm are being tested with huge volume of data, maybe the behavior is indeed correct. So, you have to vary your assumption, not just changing the algorithm, but also try changing your data. Well, I think I've done enough for this seminar. It's longer than expected. So once again, I would like to collect some input from you from this seminar. You can again scan this QR code and go to the multimedia website, which is still open, I hope, for you to provide input. I'll be monitoring that in the coming weeks. And with that, I would like to call this seminar finished. Once again, I would like to thank Dr. Sidhu and also the Prince Songkla University of Phuket, right, in Thailand, to give me the opportunity to deliver this seminar to all of you. Thank you very much. I hope to connect with you at some stage in the future. Thank you.
If you are looking to study in digital business, you must know. Sawadee. My name is Roman and I'm from Russian Federation. I not speak Thai well. The Phuket is a touristic island. 20-minute driving from Phuket campus. I just in 20 minutes can swim in the ocean, can enjoy university life. I try to make it funny and as much enjoyable for me as possible. If you are looking to study in digital business, you will face two parts of study. One part is digital, other part is economic, which is business part. Digital business program is international and it's perfectly fit for anybody who would like to create business of new generation. Enjoy your student life and choose College of Computing.